If I were to describe Khabib's grappling in one word, it would be relentless. Relentless in the way he shoves and pins his opponent against the cage. Relentless in the way he grabs a hold of his opponent and never lets go, chaining together takedown after takedown. And his relentless dominance as he sticks you to the floor and smashes your face in. These are the main things we're going to be talking about in this section. What makes Khabib great? Let's start off with Khabib's entries and takedown options. Khabib, being a master grappler, has a massive amount of techniques to get to the fight to the ground.
A favorite of Khabib's is the dive bomb single leg. While most of those singles are performed closer to the opponent, Khabib prefers some distance. With that kind of space, he gets low enough to bypass his opponent's head or hand defense. Using a jab to disguise the takedown, or he even sometimes does it with no setup at all, Khabib shoots straight at the lead leg, taking a long penetrating step with his arms reaching out, ending up on his knees with his head on the leg, securing his grip. Off this single, he can stand up, improve his grip, and find a way to eliminate the base leg. He can be incredibly difficult to shake off if his grip is really solid. He'll hold on and find a way to get you down, or even drive you to the fence. Another option Khabib has is his upper body lock takedowns. Getting double underhooks and gripping his hands together behind the opponent's back allows Khabib multiple ways of controlling and putting his opponent down, or even driving them to the fence. Trips, hip tosses, and straight up picking up and slamming people down. These are all available from the body lock position. Khabib employs a variation of the body lock aptly named the twist body lock. He angles slightly off to the side to get more torque into his body lock and to open up his trips. For example, Khabib's underhooks go up his opponent's back and connects his hands together on the opposite hip. The side-on angle allows Khabib to insert his leg in between the opponent's base. This allows the hips to get close inside, making the lifts much easier. Here Khabib tricks Barboza into thinking he wants to lift, attempting to rip him off the cage. As Barboza defends, Khabib gets a sneaky inside leg trip. This is generally the danger of getting too close to Khabib. From the clinch, he can get to a body lock and go for a takedown, or most likely get you to the cage, where Khabib does his best work. In fact, you may have noticed a trend, using single legs and body locks to drive people to the fence. The cage is Khabib's greatest tool, that is shown most in his double leg takedown. Khabib's double leg is usually shot when the opponent is near the cage. He is a master at using the cage and is absolutely where he is the most dangerous. It's his ability to chain together technique after technique that makes him an absolute horror to deal with. And the cage is a barrier, allowing Khabib to flow from one technique to the other. Here we see Khabib finish the double against the cage, locking his hands underneath the opponent's bum, picking up and slamming them. In this sequence, however, we see Khabib use the double leg to drive his opponent to the cage, but the double leg is stuffed. It doesn't matter his initial takedown attempt failed. You see him switch to a high crotch single and get his opponent down anyways. Now let's dive into a sequence where there is more resistance against the cage, and we can really see his cage wrestling in action. Khabib starts by feinting a level change backing up Poirier. He then throws out a flurry of strikes that push back Dustin even more. Once Khabib has him right where he wants him, he shoots quickly for the double leg, pinning Dustin to the fence. Dustin successfully stuffed the double leg here by getting a Whizzer and a guillotine grip on Khabib's head, not allowing him to get his head underneath Dustin's hips. Dustin also widens his base to make it even harder for Khabib to take him down with the double. Khabib quickly moves to the single leg attempt, lifting up and using his head to pin Dustin to the cage. Dustin successfully keeps his balance by actually using the cage to stay upright. For now. He goes in for the double leg position. Dustin uses both arms to underhook this one arm. This is a bit of a mistake by Dustin, because you'll see Khabib easily gets out. Switches to the unguarded side quickly, locks his hands, and gets this single leg. As Dustin tries to get away, Khabib kicks out his base leg, tipping Dustin forward with his weight, forcing Dustin off balance. Poirier then turns to get his back on the cage for support. As he turns, he puts his weight on his left leg. Khabib quickly kicks out his leg, as Dustin has no balance, and gets Dustin down for good. Khabib is absolutely the greatest chain wrestler MMA has seen, and it's shown in the sequences versus Dustin Poirier, as well as this one versus Darrell Horcher. Khabib steps in to draw out a strike, bringing Horcher's hands away from his hips. He shoots a double. Horcher blades his stance, so Khabib has to switch off to a single. From there, he's looking to build up and take out the base leg. Khabib clutches it to his chest and follows him to the cage. As soon as he sees Horcher is about to hit the fence, he reshoots the double. Horcher cross faces to create space to keep digging for an underhook, which weakens the double. Khabib switches off to a single on the other side. Horcher whizzers to keep it tall, but starts thinking about wrist control on the other side, but it's too late, and Khabib is able to connect his hands. He circles to open up Horcher's back, which is what allows him to switch off to the seatbelt and let go to connect the body lock. Once he has the body lock cinched, Khabib steps in front of him and blocks his hips, and twists him over that barrier. Khabib goes from double to single to double to single to double to single, then uses the single to grab the body lock. It's crazy seeing Khabib throw out 20 different takedown attempts, and his opponent, it's just too late to properly defend them all. Or in Dustin's case, wait until he makes a big mistake and capitalize on it. Chain wrestling is all about having techniques that lead to each other if you fail, and Khabib has that science down. Once Khabib has you on the ground, he has a large variety of techniques to keep his dominant position and do major damage. Let's take a look at a sequence versus Michael Johnson. Starting from full guard, Khabib uses a technique called tripod passing. Tripod passing allows Khabib to pin down his opponent while also using it as a base to pass. He easily passes into half guard, trying to get into full mount, but Johnson shrimps and turns in, and gives some resistance to Khabib. Khabib strikes and pushes on Johnson's head, flattening him out. From here, he plans to build a stable base so he can lay down vicious ground and pound. Once his main base is built, Johnson postures up. Very quickly, Khabib puts pressure on Johnson's head and stands to strike at the same time, all while keeping a stable base. Keeping balance like this is incredibly impressive. As Johnson turns in, Khabib drops back down to a new base and controls Johnson. His ability to go from base to base to base allows him to switch from smashing to controlling easily. Johnson, not wanting to take any more of this punishment, crawls towards the cage. Khabib has another hell waiting for him there. Khabib, very snake-like, puts his leg behind Johnson and immediately grabs the Dagestani handcuff. This is a ride position, making it very difficult for Johnson to defend himself or even move. Khabib hooks the leg up high here, controlling the hips and trapping the leg. Khabib absolutely adores trapping limbs. He grabs the inside wrist, aka Dagestani handcuff, allowing him to smash Johnson's face in. Using tripod passing, dynamically building bases to strike, and this ride position all in tandem with each other is what makes Khabib's top game extremely oppressive and relentless. Here, we see him tripod pass straight in the full mount. This opponent didn't shrimp it up enough. Building bases can be done from half guard to full guard and more, allowing Khabib to stand up and strike from multiple positions, not giving them his chance to even strike back. The ride position on its own is good enough to lay down some nice smash. Handcuffs aren't even needed. Another of Khabib's options on the ground is the leg mount. This can usually be done after a successful takedown near the cage, quickly wrapping up the legs with his own. This position allows Khabib great control over his opponent's lower body. He can smash from this position or crawl his way up to full mount. See here as he positions his opponent's hand to be isolated as Khabib steps over. Look for that when Khabib fights. The isolation of legs and arms. The side mount crucifix also isolates both arms, allowing Khabib to freely smash. There are so many techniques that Khabib has at his disposal, it's difficult to even cover all of them in this video, but I believe I've talked about his main weapons here. Now with all this in mind, the big question is, can Justin handle this? Does he have the wrestling/grappling pedigree to deal with this? Is Khabib just way too dominant? Well, the answer is a resounding
I don't know! I'm one of the biggest legends and stars ever in this. God! And you
Justin Gaethje's wrestling is unfortunately something we haven't seen much in his career, despite the fact that he has a background as a D1 wrestler. But there is enough that shows some interesting factors, especially defensively, in his matchup versus Khabib. Early in Justin's career, he was a wrestler, slamming people down violently, Khabib-esque. Eventually, he used his wrestling only to keep the fight standing. He still has a lot of his wrestling instincts. Justin has really quick and strong hips in order to sprawl in open space, and uses down blocks well to deter initial shots, stuffing multiple takedowns and showing he still has a mind for it, especially for defensive wrestling. See here as he wildly throws a kick, he's not this crazy anymore. Kinda. His opponent ends up locking his hands together, and slowly walks Justin to the cage. Justin correctly rips the grip apart, 2 hands on 1 wrist. This is the best way to get out of Khabib's bodylock, by the way. He simultaneously pushes the head and spins out, getting the heck out of there and away from the cage. Some of his instincts, however, are a double-edged sword. Gaethje, in a recent interview with Brett Okamoto, Justin explains that he's not good on his back due to his wrestling background, and does everything possible to not end up on his back. This leads Gaethje to quickly give up his back if he's taken down. He has shown a reliance on the quad pod. On the quad pod, Alan Poirier did have some success with it, but it's quite risky and energy intensive. Best to avoid staying in a position too long. He would rather run the risk of having somebody jump on his back than have his back on the canvas. The urgency he shows to accomplish this is a good thing. With somebody like Khabib though, it could lead to a situation where Khabib could be dragged to the floor and choked out, especially as the fights go on into championship rounds. Justin's urgency might not be there if he's tired. Another way Gaethje stays off his back is by using scrambles and funk rolls to get away. This is something we've seen Gaethje do quite a bit. Let's take a look at this here. Justin throws a wild kick and gets taken down, immediately going to his hands and knees. Again, Justin does not like his back on the mat. He gives up his back quickly, but stands up using the quad pod. In this precarious situation, Justin hooks the back of his opponent's leg and rolls forward. During that roll, Justin quickly spins, switching the arm that's hooking the leg, ending up on top in side control. This is called a FatMan Roll, and was actually recently used successfully against a teammate of Khabib's. The effectiveness against Khabib remains to be seen, but if there's a chance with scrambles to get away from the grip of Khabib, take it. Khabib has dealt with scramblers before in Abel Trujillo, and a bit in the Conor fight, with mixed results, but sometimes it can be pretty effective. We will see Justin in situations we've never seen before, and possibly see him use his wrestling background more than ever, with a variety of possible new techniques. The worrisome part is that he hasn't had to extensively wrestle in a fight for a long time, but I'm sure in this fight camp he's preparing as best he can. Khabib's wrestling is extremely high level, and a tall task for anyone, but there are some weaknesses in Khabib's wrestling that others have exploited in flashes throughout his career. Justin can definitely learn from others' successes. Khabib's open mat takedowns are hit or miss, especially his dive bomb single. He's much better against the cage. They come out at such a distance without proper timing or setup, it can completely whiff. The low single allows him to get a grip low on the leg, but it's urgent from there he climbs up and gets to a stronger position. If not, Justin could simply limp leg out of the position by posting on the neck and turning his leg down. Al Iaquinta, more often than not, was able to stop Khabib's single leg attempt. Another issue with his takedowns is that it takes a massive amount of energy. Wrestling in general expends a lot of stamina. Especially when shots fail, it's incredibly frustrating and draining. Khabib is in amazing shape and genuinely has great cardio, but he has had moments where he needs to take a round off to catch his breath and be forced to stand and trade. It's just all that chaining he does and the explosiveness in his wrestling. When he's tired, his technique and power suffers. In the third round versus Conor McGregor, Conor was able to stuff a double leg takedown attempt in the open mat. Again, in the open mat. And Khabib noticeably didn't have the same ability to drive forward. Even then, Khabib, after he recovers, is back to doing what Khabib does best. There seems to be a window of time in the third or fourth round where there is an opportunity to catch Khabib when he's tired. But he's still a dangerous wrestler, and a slip-up, especially near the cage, can end with him on top, safely resting on top of you. During the Dustin fight, it's notable to point out that Khabib only used his cage wrestling, which Khabib excels at and was far more energy efficient. That leads to another question. How do you stop Khabib's cage wrestling? When Khabib goes in for a bodylock situation near the cage, he really likes to get that right underhook. Framing off his shoulder as he comes in can be particularly effective in avoiding that position. If he does get that right underhook against the cage, it's important to not let him join his hands together behind your back. Justin can do this by constantly hand fighting, controlling the left hand, framing his left shoulder, or controlling his left bicep. From here, you can shift your hips and dart out to Khabib's left side. Justin can use a favorite of his in this position, using the single collar tie to push on Khabib's left shoulder, preventing him from joining his hands, and switch to the left side and go for that knee on Khabib's open body. This needs to be done quickly, or else Khabib can chain into a single leg. In fact, breaking Khabib's chain wrestling early is imperative. Justin needs a quick, layered defense to deal with all the options Khabib can go for. This has been done before and shown by Al Iaquinta. As Khabib is attempting a double leg, Al quickly goes for the underhook and the whizzer. The urgency Al goes for these hooks is key as they hit the fence. The underhook and whizzer lift up the double as Al widens his base. The double is successfully stuffed at this point, but of course Khabib has options. Al abandons the underhook, causing Khabib to quickly switch to a single. Khabib has to regrip his hands, giving Al his moment. Khabib lifts up, but Al is already prepared, immediately pushing on Khabib's left arm. He posts on Khabib's neck to create separation. Al moves back and turns right, hiding his hips and limp legs out. Khabib's grip slides off there, and Al places his foot down to get back in the stance. Again, Khabib's chain wrestling is extremely hard to deal with, but with the right timing and layered defense, Justin has the ability to break the chain. Perhaps the best way to avoid getting taken down is to avoid getting backed up against the cage. Gaethje recently said, "If my back's against the cage, I lose," wanting to avoid that position completely by using his evasive footwork to set up his powerful offense. This is where the fight will ultimately be decided, and Justin honestly has all the tools to give Khabib tons of trouble. In the next video, we'll be covering the movement and striking of Gaethje, as well as Khabib's striking and how it complements his wrestling. Then we'll talk the complete matchup and game plan for both. This project has taken months to draw and write, and I'm really happy I can finally release it. If you'd like to support my work, I have a Patreon, and it'd be awesome if you became a patron. Subscribe to my channel and hit that baloney. Big thanks to Dan, Ed, and Aiden, and Downward Elbow for helping me create and write this video. Follow them on Twitter, and I'll do more of appropriate thanks at the end of the next video, because as I'm recording this outro for this video, the second video isn't even done, and I gotta go run and do that now. So follow me on the Twitter and the Instagram, and if you donate to my Patreon, I'll be a happy boy. I want to do this forever. Okay, I think that's everything. I love you. That was a kiss, by the way.